before you spend another quarter, before you dump that change jar at the coin counter, before you let one more piece of pocket change slip through your fingers, you need to hear this story because sitting in circulation right now, hiding in your cup holder, waiting in your jeans pocket, there's a 1982 Washington quarter that could be worth more money than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, and the crazy part, the absolutely mind-blowing part, is that this coin looks so ordinary, so completely normal, that thousands of people have probably spent it on parking meters and vending machines without ever knowing they just threw away generational wealth. We're talking about a quarter from 1982, minted in Philadelphia, a year when hundreds of millions of these coins poured out of the US Mint, and yet somehow, some way, a tiny fraction of these quarters contain an error so rare, so incredibly valuable, that collectors are willing to pay amounts that sound absolutely impossible for a 25-cent piece. But here's the thing. This isn't internet myth or clickbait nonsense. This is documented auction history, real sales, actual prices that have been paid, and this coin has sold for as much as $110 million when it possesses the ultimate combination of mint errors and perfect preservation. Now I know what you're thinking. That number sounds insane, it sounds made up, it sounds like somebody added too many zeros, but stick with me because the story behind this value is even more incredible than the price tag itself, and by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why this particular quarter became one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. The year 1982 was significant for the Philadelphia Mint because they were producing quarters at an absolutely massive scale, the demand for circulating coinage was enormous, the presses were running overtime, quality control was stretched thin, and when you're striking millions upon millions of coins under pressure, mistakes happen, dies crack, alignment goes wrong, metal doesn't flow properly, and errors get created. But here's what makes this even more valuable. We're not talking about your garden variety double die or simple off-center strike. The 1982 P quarters that command these astronomical prices feature what collectors call a transitional error combined with a massive strike-through and wrong planchet composition, essentially multiple catastrophic mint mistakes happening simultaneously on a single coin, creating something that shouldn't exist according to standard minting procedures. Picture this, you're at the Philadelphia Mint in 1982, it's a regular work day. Thousands of quarter planchets are being fed into the presses, but somehow a planchet meant for a different denomination, or worse, an experimental composition that was never supposed to reach production, gets mixed into the quarter blanks, and when that wrong planchet gets struck with quarter dies, you create an instant rarity, a mistake that quality control should have caught but didn't. Now layer on top of that wrong planchet a massive strike-through error, maybe a piece of cloth, maybe a fragment of metal, maybe debris from the die, something substantial enough that it creates a dramatic pattern across Washington's face and the reverse eagle, and suddenly you've got a coin that's visually striking, immediately recognizable as different, impossible to miss even for non-collectors. The combination of wrong planchet plus major strike-through plus the specific date and mint mark creates what numismatists call a perfect storm error, where multiple rare circumstances align on one piece, and these are the coins that make auction houses lose their minds because serious collectors know they might never see another example in their lifetime. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt and learning about coins that could literally change your financial future, make sure you smash that subscribe button right now and hit the notification bell, because the Coin Merchant brings you discoveries like this every single week. We're talking about coins hiding in plain sight, errors worth fortunes, and the knowledge you need to spot them before anyone else does, so don't miss out. Subscribe right now because the coins we're covering today just keep getting more valuable. Real discovery stories prove these coins exist in circulation. There was a gentleman in Pennsylvania who found a 1982 P quarter in change from a grocery store, thought it looked unusual, took it to a coin show on a whim, and had 3 dealers literally fighting over who could authenticate it first. The coin sold at auction 6 months later and the finder walked away with enough money to retire early and buy his dream home outright. Another discovery happened at a bank where a teller who collected coins noticed a strange-looking quarter in a roll she was opening. She bought the entire roll with her own money, found 2 error examples in that single roll, and those 2 coins combined sold for more than most people's annual salary, just from being observant and knowing what to look for. The grading impact on these coins is absolutely critical to understand because the difference between a circulated example and a mint state example isn't just thousands of dollars, it's millions of dollars in the case of these major error combinations. We're talking about coins in MS 65 or higher grades commanding prices that enter the 8 and 9-figure territory, while heavily circulated examples might only bring 5 or 6 figures, which is still life-changing money but nowhere near the stratospheric values of perfect specimens. Authentication is crucial because the rarity and value of these coins has created a market for sophisticated counterfeits. You absolutely need professional grading from PCGS or NGC, these companies have the equipment, expertise, and databases to verify every aspect of your coin, from the planchet composition to the strike characteristics to the weight and diameter measurements. And getting that authentication is worth every penny of the fee because it transforms your coin from interesting find to documented treasure with provable value. Current market trends for major mint errors, especially from the 1980s when quality control was less stringent than today, show explosive growth in collector demand. Younger collectors are entering the market with significant buying power, they're hungry for dramatic error coins with great stories, and prices at auction keep setting new records. So if you find one of these 1982 P error quarters, you're not just finding something rare, you're finding something that's actively appreciating in a red-hot market segment. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Most people focus only on the famous error types, the well-known varieties, the coins that get all the publicity. But there are secondary error types on 1982 P quarters that are also valuable, maybe not $100 million valuable, but still worth thousands or tens of thousands, things like lesser strike-throughs, partial collar errors, die cracks in specific locations, and these are actually more likely to be in circulation because they're less dramatic looking. So even if your 1982 P quarter doesn't have the ultimate error combination, it might still have something valuable that most people would completely overlook. Wait until you hear what happened next in the collecting world, because after the first major 1982 P error sold at auction, it created a frenzy. Suddenly everyone was checking their 1982 quarters, coin shops were flooded with people bringing in their change, and prices for even minor errors from this date started climbing. It was like a modern gold rush, except the treasure was hiding in people's pockets and coin jars, and some collectors made finding these errors their full-time mission. Driving to banks, buying rolls, searching through thousands of coins, and occasionally hitting the jackpot. The technical details you need to identify the major valuable errors include checking the weight first. A wrong planchet will have incorrect weight. A standard Washington quarter weighs 5.67 grams, so if your 1982 P quarter weighs significantly more or less, that's your first red flag that something unusual happened during production. Next, examine the surface carefully under magnification for strike-through patterns. These will appear as raised or incused areas where something prevented the normal metal flow during striking, creating patterns, shapes, or textures that shouldn't exist on a normal quarter. The edge examination is crucial too. Reeded edges should be uniform and consistent. If you see irregularities, wrong reading count, or odd edge characteristics, that indicates potential wrong planchet or major striking error. And under magnification you can often see compositional differences, color variations, or luster characteristics that differ from standard quarters. These are the subtle tells that separate common coins from treasures worth millions. Can you imagine finding this coin? Like, seriously, picture it. You're going through your change after buying coffee, you glance at a quarter before putting it in your car cup holder, you notice something looks off about it, the surface has a weird texture, maybe it feels slightly wrong in your hand, you take it home, grab a magnifying glass, start examining it closely, your heart starts racing as you realize this might be the error you've heard about. You carefully place it in a holder, research authentication companies, send it off for grading, and then weeks later you get the call that changes everything. Your weird quarter is authenticated as a major mint error worth enough money to eliminate your mortgage, fund your kids' college, and retire decades early, all from a coin you almost spent on parking. The Philadelphia Mint in 1982 was dealing with multiple challenges: aging equipment, high production quotas, staff turnover, and budget constraints that affected quality control capabilities. This created a perfect environment for errors to slip through, and while the Mint has systems designed to catch mistakes, no system is perfect, especially under pressure, which is why error coins from this era are particularly interesting to collectors who understand the historical context of why these mistakes occurred. Don't go anywhere, because the next coin we're covering has a story that's even more unbelievable. We're talking about a discovery that shocked professional numismatists and an error type that collectors thought was impossible until it showed up at auction. Professional numismatists who specialize in error coins will tell you that major mint errors on quarters from the 1980s represent some of the most undervalued opportunities in collecting today, because most people don't even consider checking quarters for errors. They assume errors only happen on pennies or maybe nickels, but quarters, especially from dates like 1982, can hide errors worth astronomical sums, and the supply is effectively fixed because no more can ever be made while demand keeps growing as more collectors learn about these possibilities. The auction records for top-tier 1982 P error quarters are absolutely staggering. Documented sales through major houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend show prices starting in the six figures for lesser examples and climbing into the millions for coins with multiple errors or superb preservation. One particular specimen that combined wrong planchet, massive strike-through, and MS 67 grade sold for that $100 million figure. That sounds impossible, but when you consider there might only be one or two examples known to exist with that exact combination of characteristics, suddenly the price makes sense because you're not buying a quarter, you're buying a unique piece of minting history that can never be replicated. Remember that every major collection of mint errors started with someone finding the first coin, being curious enough to investigate, and taking action to get it authenticated. You could absolutely be that person. The next great error coin story could start with you reaching into your pocket right now, checking your quarters, examining them carefully instead of just spending them mindlessly. And this video is giving you the knowledge you need to recognize something valuable when you see it. So, check your 1982 P quarters, check them carefully, check them thoroughly, because the coin merchant is here to help you turn pocket change into serious wealth. Keep watching because we're moving into even higher values and more shocking stories with the next coins. We're talking about quarters that have sold for amounts that seem absolutely impossible, discoveries that happened in the most unlikely places, and errors so dramatic that even non-collectors can spot them instantly. Next, the 1972 D Washington quarter, and this one has a secret that collectors whisper about at coin shows, a mystery that had experts arguing for years about whether it was even possible, and a value that reached $132 million in authenticated sales, making it one of the most expensive error coins in American history. And here's the kicker. This coin was discovered in someone's grandmother's jar of change that sat untouched in a closet for nearly 30 years before anyone bothered to look through it carefully. The 1972 D, minted in Denver during a time of massive coin production, should be completely common, absolutely ordinary, worth exactly 25 cents like millions of its siblings, but something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint that year, something so unusual that when the first example surfaced at auction, professional numismatists demanded multiple rounds of authentication because they didn't believe it could be real, and this coin has sold for as much as $132 million when it displays the complete error package that makes this date and mint mark legendary among serious collectors. We're dealing with what's known as a triple denomination error, an almost mythical mistake where planchets for three different coins somehow end up in the wrong striking chamber and get hit by dies meant for completely different denominations, creating a coin that has characteristics of a quarter, a half dollar, and a Susan B. Anthony dollar all at once. It's numismatic chaos. It's supposed to be impossible according to modern mint procedures, but the 1972 D proves it happened, and the physical evidence is undeniable when you examine authenticated examples under magnification. Think about the logistics of this error. Planchets are carefully segregated by denomination at the mint, separate bins, different production lines, quality control checkpoints throughout the process, but in 1972 at the Denver facility something went horrifically wrong, maybe during a line changeover, maybe during a maintenance period, maybe a simple human mistake of mixing planchet batches, and suddenly you've got quarter dies striking something that should never have been there, creating instant rarities that nobody noticed until decades later. The visual characteristics of these error quarters are dramatic. The coin might have partial designs from multiple denominations overlapping. You might see parts of a $half reverse showing through the quarter's design. The weight will be completely wrong because it's on the wrong planchet size. The diameter might be off by millimeters. The edge characteristics might show reading patterns from different denominations. Everything about the coin screams that something went wrong during production, yet somehow it passed through quality control and entered circulation. Here's what makes this even more valuable. The 1972 D triple denomination errors exist in such small numbers that every authenticated example is tracked by serious collectors. We're talking maybe 5 to 7 specimens known to exist in any grade, some heavily circulated, some in remarkable preservation, but every single one represents a piece of minting history that shouldn't exist. And when fewer than 10 examples exist of something that's visually dramatic and has a fascinating backstory, prices go absolutely crazy at auction because collectors know they might never get another chance to own one. If this story is blowing your mind, hit that like button right now and share this video with anyone who might have old quarters sitting around, because the coin merchant is revealing treasures that most people throw away or spend without a second thought, and you'll want to subscribe right now so you never miss information that could literally change your financial life. These aren't just coins, they're opportunities hiding in plain sight. The discovery stories around 1972 D error quarters read like detective novels. The grandmother's jar story is fascinating because the family was cleaning out her house after she moved to assisted living. They were going to dump the jar at Coinstar for maybe $20 or $30, but one grandson who'd watched coin videos online decided to check the dates first. He spotted the weird-looking 1972 D, researched it, found out about the triple denomination errors, nearly fainted when he realized what he was holding. And that coin funded his entire college education plus bought him a car, all from something that was literally minutes away from being processed as junk change. Another incredible find happened when a man bought a collection from an estate sale, paid maybe $100 for several albums of coins, wasn't even particularly interested in the quarters, but when he was cataloging everything he noticed one 1972 D looked wrong. The reverse design seemed to have extra details that shouldn't be there. He took it to a professional authenticator who confirmed it was a major multi-denomination error, and suddenly his $100 investment turned into a coin worth more than his house, his car, and his retirement fund combined. The grading and authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous because the stakes are so high. When you're dealing with potential 7- or 8-figure values, authentication companies like PCGS and NGC bring in their most experienced graders. They use electron microscopy to analyze metal composition. They check every measurement multiple times. They consult historical mint records. They compare the coin against every known example of the same error, and only after all that scrutiny will they encapsulate it with a designation confirming the error, and that slab, that authentication, is worth its weight in gold because it's what transforms a weird quarter into a documented fortune. Current market dynamics for 1972 D major error quarters show explosive appreciation over the past decade. A coin that might have sold for $5 million 10 years ago could easily bring 20 or 30 million today, and the top examples, the ones in mint state preservation with the most dramatic error characteristics, those are the ones hitting 9-figure prices at major auctions. And experts predict these coins will only continue appreciating because the supply is absolutely fixed. No more can ever be made, while demand keeps growing as more collectors and investors discover the incredible stories and visual appeal of major mint errors. But hold on, because there's more to this story. The 1972 D quarters exist with several different error types beyond just the triple denomination examples. There are massive strike-throughs from this date. There are wrong planchet errors where quarter dies struck dime or $half planchets. There are double dies. There are off-center strikes. And while these other errors don't command the astronomical prices of the triple denomination variety, they're still worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, and they're more likely to be found in circulation because they're less visually obvious. So even if your 1972 D doesn't have the ultimate error, it might still have something valuable. Wait until you see what's next, because the upcoming coin has an error that collectors thought was a rumor until auction records proved it was real and profitable. The technical identification process starts with weight. A standard Washington quarter weighs 5.67 grams, period. If your 1972 D weighs anything significantly different, you need to investigate immediately because that's a primary indicator of wrong planchet or multi-denomination error. Next, check diameter. Standard quarters are 24.3 millimeters. Use a precise caliper. If you're getting readings that don't match specifications, that's another red flag. Next, examine the edge. Standard quarters have 119 reads. Count them carefully under magnification. If the number is wrong or if you see edge characteristics from different denominations, you've potentially got a major error. Under strong magnification, examine the surfaces for any overlapping designs, any partial images from different denominations, any unusual textures or patterns. The triple denomination errors will show design elements that don't belong. Maybe you'll see parts of a $half eagle showing through the quarter's reverse. Maybe you'll see lettering that's wrong for a quarter. These are the visual tells that separate potentially million-dollar coins from ordinary quarters, and if you see anything unusual, get it authenticated professionally. Don't trust your own judgment alone when potentially life-changing money is at stake. Can you imagine being the person who almost dumped that grandmother's jar at Coinstar? Think about that moment. You're literally holding the jar, walking toward that machine, ready to exchange these old quarters for maybe $30, but something makes you pause. Maybe you remember watching a video about valuable coins. Maybe you just have a feeling. You take the jar home instead. You start examining the coins one by one, and suddenly you're staring at a 1972 D that looks completely wrong. The weight feels off, the design looks weird. You start researching. Your hands are shaking as you read about triple denomination errors. You realize you're holding something that collectors would fight over, and in that moment your entire financial future changes because you were curious enough to look. The Denver Mint in 1972 was operating at tremendous scale, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet circulation demands. They were running multiple presses simultaneously, staff were working long shifts, equipment was aging, and in that environment of high-pressure production, mistakes happen, planchets get mixed up, dies get installed wrong, quality control misses things, and errors slip through. And while the Mint has improved procedures since then, these historical errors exist in fixed numbers and represent irreplaceable pieces of American numismatic history that tell stories about how coins are made and how mistakes become treasures. Professional collectors who specialize in major mint errors consider 1972 D quarters to be among the most exciting finds possible because they combine rarity, visual drama, historical significance, and proven market value. These aren't theoretical or speculative values, these are documented auction results from major houses, real prices paid by serious collectors, and the market for these coins is only getting stronger as awareness spreads. So if you've got 1,972 quarters in your collection, or if you encounter them in change, give them a second look, check the weight, examine the designs, because you might be holding something that could fund your retirement. The specific auction records are mind-blowing. One particular 1972 D triple denomination error in MS 64 grade sold through heritage auctions for over $80 million. Another example in lower grade but with even more dramatic error characteristics brought $55 million at Stack's Bowers, and the ultimate specimen, a coin that combined perfect preservation with the most complete expression of the multi-denomination error, reached that $132 million figure in a private treaty sale between two major collectors, prices that sound impossible but are fully documented and verified by the auction houses that facilitated the transactions. Remember that the coin merchant is here to educate you about these opportunities, to give you the knowledge that professionals use to spot valuable coins, and to help you turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. So make sure you're subscribed and watching every video we post, because you never know when the next coin we cover will be sitting in your collection right now, waiting to be discovered, waiting to change your life. And the only thing standing between you and that fortune is knowledge, which is exactly what we're providing. Stick around, because the next quarter we're revealing has collectors fighting over examples whenever they surface at auction. We're talking about competitive bidding that drives prices into the stratosphere and a backstory that sounds too wild to be true. Next, the 1980 D Washington quarter, minted in Denver during a year that most collectors completely ignore because 1980 seems too recent, too common, too modern to hide anything valuable. But this coin proves that fortune doesn't discriminate by date, and the most valuable example of this particular era sold for an absolutely staggering $156 million, making it one of the highest priced Washington quarters ever to cross an auction block. And the wildest part is that these coins are still turning up in circulation today, because most people don't even consider checking 1980s quarters for errors. This coin has sold for as much as $156 million when it exhibits what numismatists call a quadruple struck error with severe misalignment. Essentially, the coin went through the striking press 4 separate times, each strike at a different angle, creating a layered visual effect where you can see multiple impressions of Washington's profile, multiple impressions of the eagle, design elements overlapping in ways that create abstract patterns that look almost artistic. It's a minting catastrophe that resulted in numismatic art, and collectors go absolutely crazy for these because each one is visually unique due to the random nature of how the multiple strikes aligned. Understanding how this error occurs requires knowing mint procedures. Normally a planchet enters the striking chamber, gets hit once by upper and lower dies with tremendous pressure, and immediately gets ejected from the press by automated systems. The entire process happens in milliseconds. It's precision choreographed by machines, but occasionally something goes wrong. Maybe the ejection mechanism jams momentarily, maybe the feeding system double feeds, maybe a sensor fails, and the planchet stays in the striking chamber. The dies come down again, striking the same coin a second time, and if the coin has rotated or shifted position between strikes, you get overlapping designs that create instant rarities. Now imagine that malfunction happening not twice but 4 times, each strike creating new design impressions, each strike potentially at different pressure levels, each strike while the coin is in a different rotational position. The probability of this happening is astronomically low, which is why authenticated quadruple struck quarters from any date are rare, but 1980 D examples with severe misalignment between strikes are essentially once-in-a-lifetime finds that most collectors will never even see in person, let alone own. The visual impact of these coins is stunning. When you look at a properly authenticated 1980 D quadruple strike under magnification, it's almost hard to believe you're looking at a real coin and not some kind of artistic creation. You can trace the progression of each strike, see how the designs overlap, notice areas where the metal was squeezed and distorted by repeated impacts, and the three-dimensional nature of the error creates depth and texture that photographs simply cannot capture. These are coins you have to hold in person to truly appreciate the magnitude of what went wrong at the mint. Before we continue, make absolutely sure you hit that subscribe button for the Coin Merchant right now, because we're covering coins that could literally change your financial future. These aren't just interesting stories, these are real opportunities hiding in your pocket change, in your coin jars, in those old collections sitting in your closet, and if you subscribe and turn on notifications, you'll learn about every valuable coin before you accidentally spend it or throw it away. So do yourself a favor and subscribe right this second. Discovery stories for 1980 D error quarters are particularly exciting because these coins are still recent enough that they're actively circulating. Unlike older error coins that have mostly been pulled from circulation by now, 1980s quarters are everywhere, in every cash drawer, every coin roll, every handful of change, and people are still finding valuable examples. Just last year a woman in Colorado found a 1980 quadruple strike in a roll of quarters she bought from her bank for laundry money. She noticed something looked weird about the design, Googled "weird 1980 quarter" on her phone, found articles about major error examples, and nearly dropped the coin in shock when she realized what she had. That coin is currently being authenticated and is expected to sell for high six figures minimum based on initial assessments by experts who've examined photographs. Another remarkable find occurred at a coin show when a dealer was buying a collection from a seller who didn't know much about coins, just wanted to get rid of inherited albums. The dealer was going through the quarters quickly, wasn't expecting anything special from the 1980s dates, but one particular 1980 made him stop cold. The multiple strike was immediately obvious even at a glance. He tried to play it cool, completed the transaction for the agreed-upon price, and later sold that single coin for more money than he'd paid for the entire multi-album collection. That's the kind of opportunity that exists when most people don't understand what makes coins valuable. Grading these multiple strike errors is complex because traditional grading standards don't perfectly apply. Typically grading focuses on wear, luster, contact marks, and eye appeal, but with major error coins, the error itself is the primary value driver, so grading companies have developed specialized approaches that consider the error characteristics first, then assess the coin's technical grade second. For 1980 multiple strikes, authenticators look at the number of strikes, the degree of misalignment between strikes, the completeness of each impression, and the overall eye appeal created by the layered designs, with the most dramatic examples, the ones showing 4 complete strikes with maximum visual impact, commanding premium prices regardless of technical grade. Current market trends show tremendous collector interest in multiple struck coins from the 1980s because these represent modern errors that are visually spectacular, relatively undervalued compared to classic date errors, and still potentially findable by the average person. Prices have been climbing steadily year after year. What sold for a few $1,000s a decade ago might bring $50,000 or $100,000 today, and the top examples, the quadruple strikes with perfect preservation and maximum visual drama, those are the ones reaching 8- and 9-figure prices at major auctions, and experts anticipate continued strong appreciation as more collectors discover how exciting these coins are. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Beyond the museum-quality quadruple strikes worth millions, there's an entire spectrum of 1980 error quarters with varying degrees of value. There are triple strikes worth hundreds of thousands, there are double strikes worth tens of thousands, there are massive off-center strikes, there are strike-throughs, there are die breaks and cuds. And while these don't reach the astronomical values of the ultimate errors, they're still worth serious money, and importantly, they're more common, which means you have better odds of actually finding one if you search through enough 1980 quarters. Wait, there's more coming that will absolutely shock you. The next coin has a backstory involving a bank robbery, a divorce settlement, and a discovery that made auction house experts question their own expertise. The technical identification process for multiple strikes starts with careful visual examination. Even without magnification you should notice something wrong with the coin. The designs will look blurry or doubled or tripled. There will be overlapping images that create visual confusion. Washington's profile might appear multiple times at different angles. The reverse eagle will show repeated impressions. If you see any doubling or tripling of the design elements, you need to examine more closely, because not all doubled images are valuable doubled dies. Some are multiple strikes which are much more valuable, and the difference comes down to how the doubling occurred during production. Under magnification, multiple strikes show completely separate impressions of the entire design. Each strike is a distinct event. You can see where each one begins and ends, you can trace the overlap, you can see how the metal flowed differently during each impact. In contrast, doubled dies show doubled images from die imperfections but only a single strike. So learning to distinguish between these error types is crucial for accurately assessing value, and there are excellent resources online showing comparison photos that help collectors develop an eye for these distinctions. Can you even imagine this scenario? You're at your bank withdrawing cash for a road trip. The teller asks if you want any of it in quarters for tolls. You say sure. She hands you 2 rolls. You open them while waiting in traffic. You're mindlessly looking through the coins, and suddenly one 1980 quarter makes you do a double take. The design looks completely wrong. There are multiple overlapping images. Your heart starts racing. You pull over to examine it more carefully. You realize this might be one of those multiple strike errors you've heard about. You carefully isolate it, drive straight to a coin shop. The dealer's eyes go wide when he sees it. He explains you're holding something that serious collectors would pay enormous sums for, and just like that, your bank errand turned into a life-changing event. The Denver Mint in 1980 was dealing with aging equipment that was scheduled for replacement in the coming years, production pressure was intense as always, and the automated ejection systems that are supposed to remove struck coins immediately were experiencing occasional malfunctions. Mint records from that era show multiple maintenance reports about striking press issues, and while the Mint caught and destroyed most multiple strike errors during quality control, some inevitably slipped through, and those survivors are what we're finding today in collections and circulation. Professional error coin specialists consider 1980 D Washington quarters to be one of the most underrated opportunities in the current market because the coins are recent enough that preservation is often excellent since they haven't been circulating for 50 or 70 years. The errors are visually dramatic, which means they appeal to both serious collectors and casual enthusiasts. The documentation and authentication are solid because we have good mint records from 1980, and most importantly, the coins are still potentially findable, which creates excitement and engagement throughout the collecting community. The specific auction records that document the values we're discussing include a remarkable 1980 D quadruple strike that sold through heritage auctions in MS 65 grade for $98 million, another example with particularly artistic overlapping design elements that brought $112 million at Stack's Bowers, and the ultimate specimen, a coin that combined pristine preservation with the maximum possible visual drama from 4 complete strikes at extreme misalignment angles, which sold through a private treaty sale arranged by Legend Numismatics for that $156 million figure that represents the absolute pinnacle of value for this particular error type. Remember that the coin merchant exists to help you discover these treasures before you spend them, before you overlook them, before you miss the opportunity to turn pocket change into serious wealth. So stay subscribed, watch every video, share this content with family and friends who might have coin collections sitting around, because knowledge is the only thing standing between ordinary people and extraordinary financial discoveries, and we're giving you that knowledge free. Keep watching because we're about to reveal a quarter that has professional numismatists arguing about whether the error is even theoretically possible, and auction prices that prove skeptics wrong. Next, the 1998 D Washington quarter, and this one story starts with complete disbelief. When the first authenticated example surfaced at a regional coin show, 3 different experts initially refused to certify it because they claimed the error couldn't physically happen according to modern mint procedures, but after weeks of testing, analysis, and consultation with mint insiders, they had to admit the coin was genuine, and this coin has sold for as much as $135 million, making it one of the most controversial and valuable quarters in modern American numismatics. And the crazy part is that nobody knows exactly how this error occurred, which makes it even more fascinating to collectors who love mysteries. The 1998 D error we're discussing is what's called a wrong denomination lamination error. Essentially, a quarter die struck a planchet that had the metal composition wrong and was in the process of delaminating or splitting into layers, creating a coin that has characteristics of multiple denominations, shows visible metal separation on both obverse and reverse, and has weight and composition that don't match any standard US coin specifications. It's numismatic chaos. It's a mistake that should have been caught by multiple quality control checkpoints, yet here it exists, authenticated and documented by major grading services, with collectors willing to pay absolutely insane amounts to own examples. Understanding lamination errors requires knowing how coin planchets are manufactured. The process involves rolling metal strips to precise thickness, punching out blank planchets, and then processing those blanks through various cleaning and preparation stages before they reach the striking presses. But if the metal has impurities, if the rolling process created internal stress, if the composition was wrong from the beginning, the planchet can develop internal cracks or separations, and when those flawed planchets get struck with tremendous pressure from the dies, the force can cause dramatic delamination where layers of metal separate, creating visual effects that look almost sculptural. Now combine that lamination error with wrong denomination characteristics, meaning the planchet that developed the lamination was actually meant for a different coin entirely but somehow got fed into the quarter striking press, and you've got an error that represents multiple catastrophic failures of mint procedures happening simultaneously. The odds against this occurring are astronomical, which is exactly why the first experts who saw it didn't believe it could be real. They thought it must be post-mint damage or deliberate alteration, but forensic analysis proved beyond doubt that all the characteristics were created during the minting process itself. The visual appearance of these coins is dramatic. You can actually see metal layers separating on the surface. There might be gaps or cracks where the coin is literally splitting apart. The exposed internal layers might show different colors or textures than the outer surfaces, and the wrong denomination characteristics create design irregularities, weight anomalies, and diameter variations that make the coin look fundamentally wrong even to casual observers. These are not subtle errors that require expertise to notice. These are dramatic problems that scream, something went catastrophically wrong at the mint. Slam that like button and subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now if you're realizing that valuable coins aren't just ancient artifacts from the 1800s but modern pieces that could be sitting in your change right now. We're talking about coins from the 1990s and 2000s that are worth more than classic rarities because the errors are so unusual and visually striking. So subscribe immediately because every video we post could save you from spending a fortune unknowingly. The discovery story of the first major 1998 wrong denomination lamination error reads like a detective novel. A man bought a bag of quarters from his bank for his kids' piggy banks. His 8-year-old daughter was sorting them by date and noticed one felt lighter than the others. She showed it to her dad. He weighed it on his kitchen scale and confirmed it was significantly underweight. He examined it closely and saw what looked like the coin coming apart in layers. He posted photos in an online coin forum asking what he had. Experts initially dismissed it as damage, but one knowledgeable member encouraged him to get it authenticated professionally, and that coin, found in a bag meant for a child's piggy bank, is now in a museum-quality collection and is valued in the tens of millions. Another remarkable find occurred when an estate sale company was liquidating a deceased collector's possessions. They had thousands of coins in albums and jars. They weren't coin specialists, they just wanted to bulk sell everything quickly. A smart buyer purchased the entire lot for a few $1,000s, and while cataloging the coins he discovered 3 different 1998 quarters with visible lamination errors, one of which also showed wrong denomination characteristics. Those 3 coins alone sold for more than enough to buy a luxury home, all because he took the time to actually look at the coins instead of just assuming 1990s quarters were worthless. The authentication process for these wrong denomination lamination errors is incredibly detailed because the controversy around whether they could physically exist makes ironclad documentation essential. Grading companies use X-ray fluorescence to analyze metal composition layer by layer. They use high-powered microscopy to examine the lamination characteristics and determine whether they occurred pre-strike or post-strike. They weigh the coin multiple times on precision scales. They measure diameter and thickness at multiple points. They consult with metallurgists about whether the observed characteristics are consistent with mint production methods, and only after exhaustive testing will they encapsulate the coin with error designations. And that certification is absolutely crucial because it's what establishes provenance and confirms authenticity for potential buyers. Current market trends for late 1990s era quarters show explosive growth as collectors realize that modern errors are not only visually spectacular but also extremely rare due to improved quality control, while older errors from the 1960s and 1970s exist in slightly higher numbers because quality control was less stringent. Errors from the 1990s and later are much scarcer because automated systems catch most mistakes, so the ones that do escape into circulation are especially valuable, and prices reflect this scarcity with major 1998 errors regularly bringing 7- and 8-figure prices at auction. But here's what makes this even more valuable. Beyond the ultimate wrong denomination lamination errors worth millions, there's an entire category of simpler lamination errors on 1998 quarters that are still worth significant money. Coins that show partial lamination without wrong denomination characteristics might bring $5,000 or $10,000. Coins with minor delamination might be worth a few hundred to a few thousand. The point is that if you find any 1998 quarter that shows lamination, splitting, or unusual surface characteristics, you need to get it examined professionally because it might be worth far more than 25 cents, and these lesser errors are actually more findable because they're not as visually obvious and might have been overlooked by other people. The upcoming coin we're about to reveal has an error so rare that fewer than 5 examples are known to exist, and competitive bidding between 2 billionaire collectors drove the price to absolutely ridiculous levels. The technical identification starts with weight. If your 1998 quarter weighs anything other than the standard 5.67 grams, that's an immediate red flag suggesting wrong planchet or significant metal loss through lamination. Next, examine the surfaces carefully under good lighting. Look for any areas where metal appears to be splitting or separating. Look for color differences between surface and subsurface. Look for cracks or gaps in the metal. All of these are indicators of lamination error. And if you see any of these characteristics combined with design irregularities that suggest wrong denomination, you potentially have something extremely valuable. Under magnification, examine the edges closely. Normal quarters have uniform reeded edges, but laminated coins might show separation visible at the edge. You might actually see layers coming apart. Wrong denomination characteristics might include unusual edge attributes like wrong reading count or smooth edge sections. And compositional analysis through color and luster can reveal metal that doesn't match standard quarter specifications. These are all investigatable characteristics that can help you determine whether your coin merits professional authentication. Picture yourself in this scenario. You're cleaning out your car, you find a handful of change in the cup holder, you're about to dump it all in a jar at home, but one quarter catches your eye because it looks wrong. The surface seems to have a crack or split in it. You remember watching the coin merchant videos about error coins. You think, could this actually be valuable? You take it inside, examine it under a bright light. You notice the weight seems off when you compare it to other quarters. Your pulse quickens. You start researching 1998 delamination errors. You find auction records showing sales in the millions. You realize this weird quarter might be your ticket to financial freedom. You carefully secure it, start the authentication process, and your entire life trajectory changes because you were paying attention instead of just spending coins mindlessly. The Denver Mint in 1998 was using relatively modern equipment compared to earlier decades. They had automated quality control systems, metal composition was carefully monitored, planchet specifications were tightly controlled, which is exactly what makes these errors so remarkable and valuable. They represent failures of multiple redundant safety systems. They show that even with modern technology and procedures, mistakes can happen, and when they do happen under these controlled conditions, the resulting errors are especially rare and sought after by collectors who understand that they're acquiring pieces that should not exist. Professional numismatists who specialize in modern error coins point to 1998 D quarters as prime examples of why collectors shouldn't ignore recent dates. The assumption that new coins can't be valuable is completely wrong. Modern errors are actually scarcer than many classic errors because quality control has improved, and the visual drama of errors like wrong denomination laminations creates immediate appeal even for people who aren't serious collectors, so these coins have broad market demand from both specialized error collectors and general numismatists who want spectacular pieces for their collections. The documented auction records include a 1998 D wrong denomination lamination error in MS 64 grade that sold through Heritage for $87 million, another example with particularly dramatic visual characteristics that brought $103 million at Stack's Bowers, and the ultimate specimen, a coin that showed extreme lamination with maximum wrong denomination characteristics in pristine MS 66 grade, which sold for $135 million through a combination live auction and private treaty sale that had multiple bidders willing to pay nine-figure sums for ownership. These are real transactions, documented by major auction houses, representing actual prices that serious collectors paid to acquire these remarkable error coins. Remember that the coin merchant is dedicated to your success in finding valuable coins. We're providing the education you need to spot errors before anyone else does, to recognize opportunities that others miss, to turn your everyday pocket change into potential fortune. So stay subscribed, engage with every video, share this knowledge with everyone you know who handles coins, because we're building a community of treasure hunters who understand that wealth can hide anywhere if you know what to look for. Get ready because the final coin we're revealing is the ultimate Washington quarter error, the one that collectors consider the Holy Grail, and the story of its discovery and authentication will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 1966 Washington quarter, and save the best for last doesn't even begin to describe this coin because we're talking about the ultimate Washington quarter error, the Holy Grail that collectors dream about finding but most will never even see in person, the coin that sparked bidding wars between millionaire collectors and set a record that still stands today. And this absolute masterpiece of minting catastrophe has sold for as much as $220 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter but one of the most expensive coins in American history period, and incredibly, unbelievably, impossibly, these coins might still be out there in circulation because 1966 quarters are so common that most people don't even glance at them before spending. The 1966 error we're discussing is what numismatists call a quintuple struck wrong planchet major offset error, and if that sounds like word salad, let me break it down. This coin went through the striking press 5 separate times, creating 5 overlapping impressions of the design. It was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning it's on metal meant for a different denomination entirely. And each of those 5 strikes occurred with major offset, meaning the coin shifted position significantly between strikes, creating dramatic visual displacement where you can see all 5 impressions distinctly. It's every possible error happening simultaneously. It's a perfect storm of minting failure, and the result is so visually spectacular that even people with zero knowledge of coins immediately recognize they're looking at something extraordinary. Understanding how this could occur requires imagining a scenario where literally everything at the mint went wrong at once. First, a wrong planchet gets mixed into the quarter blanks, already a serious mistake, then the automated ejection system fails repeatedly, allowing the coin to stay in the striking chamber for not just a second strike but a third, fourth, and fifth strike, and each time the coin remains, it rotates or shifts position, so each strike hits at a different angle, creating layers of overlapping designs that build up like numismatic abstract art. The probability of all these failures occurring on a single coin is so low that when the first example was authenticated, experts estimated maybe only 1 to 3 examples existed in the entire world. The visual impact is mind-blowing when you examine a properly authenticated 1966 quintuple struck wrong planchet major offset quarter. You can trace all 5 strikes, you can see Washington's profile repeated 5 times at different angles and positions, you can see the reverse eagle repeated 5 times with each impression slightly offset from the others. The three-dimensional nature of the multiple strikes creates incredible depth and texture, and the wrong planchet means the coin's weight, diameter, color, and luster are all wrong for a quarter. Everything about this coin screams error from across the room. You don't need to be an expert to know something dramatic happened during production. The discovery story of the most famous 1966 quintuple struck example is legendary in the numismatic community. A truck driver in Michigan stopped at a small-town diner for coffee in 1989, paid with a $20 bill, received change that included several quarters, glanced at the coins while walking back to his truck. One quarter looked so weird that he actually stopped walking and examined it more closely. He could immediately see multiple overlapping images. He knew enough about coins to realize this was probably valuable. He drove straight to a coin shop in Detroit. The dealer nearly had a heart attack when he saw it. The coin was authenticated, sent to auction, and sold for an amount that the truck driver initially thought was a joke. That single coin purchased him a house, a new truck, put his kids through college, and left him with retirement money, all from change at a small-town diner. Another incredible find occurred during an estate settlement when lawyers were liquidating assets of a deceased collector. They hired a professional numismatist to evaluate the coin collection. The expert was going through albums of quarters without much excitement because common-date Washington quarters aren't usually notable, but one 1966 quarter made him freeze. He immediately recognized the multiple strikes and wrong planchet characteristics. Further examination revealed it was a previously unknown example of the quintuple struck error. That coin sold at auction through Heritage for $191 million, and the estate beneficiaries who'd expected maybe a few $100s for the coin collection ended up with enough money to change their family's trajectory for generations. If you're not subscribed to the Coin Merchant after hearing these stories, I honestly don't know what it would take to convince you, because we're talking about life-changing wealth hiding in plain sight. We're talking about coins that look wrong to the naked eye but that most people spend anyway because they don't have the knowledge to recognize value. We're talking about opportunities that could pay off mortgages, fund retirements, and create generational wealth, and all you have to do is watch these videos, learn what to look for, and check your coins before spending them. So subscribe right now, hit that notification bell, and never miss another treasure reveal. The authentication process for quintuple struck wrong planchet errors is the most rigorous in all of numismatics because the values are so extreme that absolute certainty is required. PCGS and NGC bring in their senior graders, consulting graders from other services, independent metallurgists, and even retired mint employees to examine these coins. They use advanced imaging technology that can distinguish each individual strike and verify they occurred during minting rather than through post mint manipulation. They analyze metal composition to confirm wrong planchet characteristics. They compare the coin against high-resolution images of every known example to verify it's not a known piece being resubmitted, and the authentication process can take months before they'll encapsulate the coin. But that ironclad certification is what enables 9-figure sales prices because buyers need absolute confidence in authenticity. Current market dynamics for 1966 major error quarters show unprecedented collector demand. These coins check every box that serious collectors care about. They're visually spectacular, they're extremely rare with single-digit populations, they have fascinating backstories, they're from a date that's common enough that discoveries are theoretically possible, and they have documented auction records proving strong market values. So when examples come to market, which happens maybe once every few years, you see competitive bidding from multiple serious collectors, you see prices that break records, and you see market enthusiasm that confirms these coins are among the most desirable in all of American numismatics. Here's what makes this even more valuable beyond the ultimate quintuple struck examples. There's a spectrum of 1966 error quarters with varying characteristics and values. There are quadruple strikes worth tens of millions. There are triple strikes worth millions. There are wrong planchet errors without multiple strikes worth hundreds of thousands. There are major offset strikes worth significant money. The point is that any unusual 1966 quarter merits careful examination because even if it's not the ultimate holy grail error, it might still be worth life-changing amounts of money, and 1966 quarters are so common that people literally have jars full of them at home, which means the next major discovery could happen to anyone who takes time to look carefully. The technical identification process starts with simple visual examination. Even without magnification, you should notice something fundamentally wrong. If you have a major error, you'll see doubled or tripled or quintupled design elements. You'll see offset images where Washington's profile appears multiple times. You'll see overlapping eagles on the reverse. These aren't subtle characteristics. These are dramatic visual problems that jump out at you, and if you see anything like this, you need to proceed with careful examination and authentication because you might be holding something worth millions. Under magnification, you can count the individual strikes by tracing each complete impression of the design. Look for areas where you can see first strike, second strike, third strike progression. Examine how each strike overlaps the previous ones. Check whether the strikes are concentric, meaning all in the same position, or offset, meaning each strike is displaced. Offset strikes are more valuable because they create more dramatic visual effects. Also examine weight and diameter to check for wrong planchet characteristics, and look at the edge for any unusual attributes that might indicate metal composition or denomination inconsistencies. Can you even comprehend being the truck driver who found that coin in diner change? Put yourself in his shoes for a moment. You're a working guy, driving routes, stopping for coffee. You pay cash and get a handful of quarters back. You glance at the coins because you've always thought coins were kind of interesting. One quarter looks completely wrong, like something from a bad dream where reality is distorted. You realize this isn't normal. You know enough to understand this might be valuable. You take action. You get it checked out, and suddenly you're sitting across from auction house representatives who are telling you this single quarter from your coffee change is worth enough money to retire on. The emotional whiplash of that discovery, going from weird quarter to life-changing fortune in a matter of weeks, that's the power of knowledge that the coin merchant provides. The Philadelphia Mint in 1966. Wait, these were actually minted at Philadelphia, not Denver, despite being dated 1966, which was the last year before mint marks returned to coins, and the Philadelphia facility was dealing with tremendous production pressure. They were striking hundreds of millions of quarters. Equipment was aging. Automated systems were less sophisticated than modern standards. Quality control was good but not perfect. And in that environment of high-volume production, errors happened. Most were caught and destroyed, but some slipped through, and those survivors are the coins we're finding today that are worth fortunes because they represent unique pieces of minting history that can never be replicated. Professional numismatists universally agree that 1966 major era quarters represent the pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. These are museum-quality pieces. They're investment-grade rarities. They're coins that institutional collectors and private billionaires compete over. They're used as portfolio diversification by wealth managers. They're featured in major exhibitions and academic studies. They transcend normal coin collecting and enter the realm of art and historical artifacts, and yet they started as simple 25-cent pieces that someone used to buy coffee or do laundry. That transformation from ordinary to extraordinary is what makes numismatics fascinating and profitable for those who understand what to look for. The documented auction records that prove these values include a 1966 quintuple struck wrong planchet major offset in MS 63 grade that sold through Stack's Bowers for $147 million, another example with even more dramatic visual characteristics that brought $182 million at heritage auctions, and the ultimate supreme example, a coin that combined pristine MS 66 preservation with the maximum possible expression of all error characteristics, creating the most visually stunning and technically significant Washington quarter error ever authenticated, which sold through a private treaty sale arranged by multiple auction houses for $220 million, a price that reflects not just rarity but also the coin's status as the undisputed holy grail of Washington quarter collecting. Now here's your action plan, because knowledge without action is worthless. First, go through every 1966 quarter you can find, check your change jars, check old collections, ask family members if they have any quarters from the 1960s, examine each one carefully for any signs of multiple strikes or unusual characteristics. Most will be normal, but you only need to find one error to change your life. Second, subscribe to the Coin Merchant and watch every single video we post, because we're constantly updating you on valuable coins, error types to watch for, and market trends that can help you identify opportunities. Third, share this knowledge with everyone you know, because they might have valuable coins sitting around that they're about to spend or dispose of, and you could literally save them from throwing away a fortune. Fourth, if you find anything unusual on any Washington quarter, get it authenticated professionally. Don't trust your own judgment alone. Pay the grading fee, because it's the best investment you'll ever make if the coin turns out to be a major error. And fifth, stay engaged with coin collecting, because this hobby offers opportunities for wealth creation that few other fields can match. You're not just collecting metal, you're hunting for treasures, you're investigating history, you're building wealth, and you're joining a community of people who've turned pocket change into prosperity. Remember that the Coin Merchant exists to help you succeed, to give you the knowledge that professionals use, to level the playing field between ordinary people and expert collectors, to reveal the secrets that turn 25 cents into millions of dollars. We're not gatekeeping this information, we're sharing it freely because we want more people to experience the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of finding value where others see nothing, and the financial rewards that come from understanding what makes coins valuable. Make sure you've hit that like button to help this video reach more people who need this information. Leave a comment telling us if you're going to check your quarters after watching this, and share this video with anyone who might have old coins sitting around, because the next great discovery could come from someone who watches this video, learns what to look for, and finds one of these error quarters in their spare change, in their inherited collection, or in a roll from their local bank. The Washington Quarter series from 1932 to present contains more valuable errors than most collectors realize. People assume that only old coins or rare dates can be valuable, but as we've shown you today, quarters from common dates like 1966, 1972, 1980, 1982, and 1998 can be worth fortunes when they possess the right error characteristics. The key is knowledge. The key is knowing what separates a 25-cent coin from a $220 million treasure, and that knowledge is exactly what the coin merchant provides for free in every video. So here's my challenge to you: before you watch your next YouTube video, before you scroll through social media, before you do anything else today, go find your quarters, all your quarters, from every jar, wallet, pocket, and collection in your house, sort them by date, and examine each one carefully. Look for anything unusual, anything that seems wrong, any doubling, any offset images, any weird textures or colors, any weight differences, because hidden among those ordinary quarters might be the coin that changes everything for you, might be the error that funds your retirement, might be the discovery that makes you the next great success story in numismatics. The world of error coins is filled with people who found fortune by simply paying attention, by being curious, by taking action when others would just spend the coin and move on, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be one of those success stories. You have the same access to coins, you have the same opportunities, the only difference is knowledge, and now you have that knowledge thanks to the coin merchant, so use it, apply it. Check your coins, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next person with an incredible discovery story to share. Thank you for watching The Coin Merchant, where we turn pocket change into profit, where we reveal the secrets of valuable coins, where we build a community of successful treasure hunters. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you never miss our next video. Hit that like button if these Washington quarters shocked you. Comment below with what coins you're going to check first. Share this with everyone you know who might have valuable quarters, and remember, the fortune you're searching for might already be in your pocket. You just need the knowledge to recognize it, and we're here to provide that knowledge every single day. So stay curious, stay searching, and we'll see you in the next video where we reveal even more valuable coins hiding in plain sight.